Welcome in to the Warchant.com report. I'm Jeff Cameron alongside Ira Schoffel and Gene Williams of Warchant.com. It's Florida State Miami week. The Noles coming off a win against Wake Forest, 3:30, by the way. Game time, Doak Campbell Stadium. ESPN will have the coverage for you. Florida State winners 26-19 against Wake Forest on the road. Now 1-2 on the year. This was a game that featured Florida State not at its best, to say the least. The Noles giving up 17 tackles for a loss. That's a Wake Forest record. Had 7 yards passing, did Florida State at halftime. At one point in the fourth quarter, had a grand total of 38 yards passing. But they found a way to win this game. My question to you, Gene, is Saturday's narrow win more telling than the loss at home to NC State?
You know, I think it was, and here's the reason why. And partially because you had convinced me that FSU was going to blow out Wake Forest. Yes, that was the pick.
Yeah.
But, you know, I kind of bought into the fact, look, against NC State, you had the weird 3-week layoff, your first start for a freshman quarterback. You go back and look at that game, every 50-50 play went to NC State. There was horrific officiating. You go, okay. It was just a weird game. Odd circumstances. Surely this great Florida State team that was number 3 preseason was going to step up and blow Wake out of the waters. Well, not so much. They, as you said, gave up 17 tackles for loss. Just look lackluster, unfocused, the exact opposite reaction you would think from a team that just suffered kind of an emasculating loss at home. So, yeah, I do think it's more telling. It's even more than last season. You really feel like there's just no way we're going to be able to turn this thing around.
Is this going to be Jimbo Fisher's? Is it a foregone conclusion that this will be Jimbo Fisher's worst season at Florida State?
Well, it certainly has every indication that that's going to be the case. I mean, you don't know for sure. I mean, they could turn it around maybe like they did last season and kind of find themselves. But the difference between last season and this season is last season, the problems were all on one side of the ball, really. The defense was a sieve. They just did not play with great effort. They were confused on so many plays. So they did a couple things to fix that defense. They simplified things. They played a lot more man coverage. That gave the players more confidence. It made them play more loose and free. That gave them some energy. Now to go with the offense, which had Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Francois emerging, that kind of all played a role in Florida State turning things around. The problem this year is I don't see a quick fix. I mean, there are problems on both sides of the ball. Every game, it seems like it's a different issue. This past week, the offensive line was unbelievably bad. The week before, the offensive line was pretty good for a while, and then they kind of faltered late. But this was a complete disaster. Defensively, I thought there was some improvement this week, but they've had some rough stretches. So, I just don't see how there's going to be one quick solution that fixes this. And if that doesn't happen, and you look at the schedule they have left with Clemson on the road and Florida on the road and Louisville at home, who scored 63 against them last year, even this week against Miami, it's just hard to see a scenario where they only lose 3 games, which they've done the last few years. It could be 5 losses without being a stretch.
Well, this much we know is true, though. There are, 8 or 9 more games left to play. He's not going to, meaning Jimbo Fisher, the head football coach, make any changes in season, Gene. So, what do you do at this point? What do you think the options are? Can something be done to salvage this season?
Well, Ira pointed out, I think the number one thing you do is try to block better. But, I mean, what was interesting about this last game, unlike the Chubb game where, he just beat some people, and he's really good, probably be playing in the league next year, you were just discombobulated in this game. There were guys that didn't know what they were doing. It looked like a group that had never played together before, which is really scary because these guys have been practicing for how long, and they're not on the same page. That does not bode well for the rest of the season. And I think on the other side of the ball, as Ira said, the defense a little, kind of been up and down so far. This was supposed to be the strength. This is where you need leaders. You need Derwin James to step up and pull these guys and say, look, we're better than this. We need to play. We need to carry this team right now. It's on us. We've got the experience. We've got the talent. It's on us. Derek Nottie, all those guys. I mean, they played pretty well, Derek Nottie and some of the others, but they haven't gone out and dominated anybody. And they really need to start doing that if this team's going to have any chance.
I think the frustration for most fans and for all involved and people watching this show is that here's the bottom line. Every program has its ups and downs. Every program has a year where things just don't work out well. But one thing that's obvious, and you don't have to be an astute follower of football or even an elite kind of Mensa football mind to see when you have 5- and 4-star players littered all over the field and they're not playing to their potential and you're getting dominated up front by a Wake Forest team that doesn't recruit anywhere near the same level of athlete, well, then there's a coaching problem going on. And you really can't escape that, and it's hard to imagine it could get turned around. I guess it would have to start this Saturday against Miami.
Yeah, and when you define a coaching problem, that can mean a lot of different things. I think some people automatically assume you mean schemes, and they're not putting their players in the right positions. But a lot of times, coaching is relating to the players, getting them to buy into the system, getting them to believe in themselves, getting them to believe and trust in their teammates. You just don't see any of that. You don't see it in really any position group on this team. You see a lot of questions after plays, a lot of, I wouldn't say finger pointing, but guys kind of getting onto each other. It's just a wreck in the sense of the players communicating and connecting with the coaches and each other. And again, this was something we saw last year as well, which is, again, troubling because it's something that apparently seemed to be fixed for a while, but now is back again.
Rearing its ugly head. Florida State has won 7 consecutive games over Miami, humiliating the Canes year in and year out for the better part of a decade. Can they make it 8? We'll judge what Miami is when we come back on the Warchant.com report. Welcome back to the Warchant.com report. It's time to take a look at the University of Miami, who returns an elite front 7. They won 7 games in a row. They're undefeated so far this year, obviously, and 1-0 in the ACC, coming off a very impressive win on the road against Duke, in which they dominated 31-6. Here's Jimbo Fisher talking about the Canes.
As our opponent is really good. Miami's a heck of a team. You watch them on defense or defensive fronts very well. The linebackers are very experienced, very athletic in the secondary, very quick. Playing so much man coverage now, you can see they have confidence in those guys. Their quarterback's doing a good job. Mark Walton's a heck of a running back. The receivers they got getting them all back. 8 Beret and getting him back in there. He does a great job on the return game. The young kid does a great job kickoff return, and then getting their big receiver 82 back, who he had 4 catches, 100 yards, had the big drag route there, hit a couple go routes, and had a drag route that broke out for a big touchdown and a key component of the game. So. They got a good team. They got a really good team. They're playing well. Mark does a great job coaching them, and we got to get ready to play. So it'll be a great Miami-Florida State game.
Jimbo Fisher on the Miami Hurricanes. Some have been wondering, of course, now with Florida State struggling right now to start the year, are we looking at the beginning of the changing of the guard in the state of Florida? Shudder to think, Ira.
Yeah, you'd have to say, based on what Mark Richt has done in recruiting since he took over there and kind of cleaning up the mess that Al Golden left. Al Golden had a terrible relationship with the high school coaches in South Florida. They were basically shut out of some of those schools, and FSU really cashed in on that, and other schools did as well. Mark Richt has kind of fixed those relationships. He's done a lot better job in recruiting. I still don't think overall, top to bottom, the talent is better at Miami. I think Florida State still has a strong edge in talent. So even if FSU loses this game, I wouldn't say the series has shifted or that the supremacy in the state has shifted for the long term. But, man, they would have a lot of momentum because they've already started building it on the recruiting front. If FSU continues to struggle, they'll lose some more momentum. Miami would have a win on the series at Tallahassee. They would have a lot of momentum in this. I still think FSU could reverse that next year if the coaching situation gets rectified, the players start buying in, really believing in themselves, playing to the level of their talent. I think FSU could still wrestle control back. But for the short term, certainly Miami would have control right now.
You're talking about a crossroads game here, Gene. This is a situation in which, of course, for reminders at home, Jimbo Fisher has never lost to the University of Miami. He's beaten them every single time he's played them. And now an opportunity here for Miami to cash in and perhaps flip the script a little bit. You do this for a living. Talk about the impact of recruiting and that hangs in the balance with this game and the result.
Well, usually I think it's overstated by fans and media when we talk about one game having an impact on recruiting, but this has a little bit of a different feel. And as Ira said, and you mentioned, a kind of a crossroads game here because FSU has won so much. And what happens when you hire a new coach, especially a guy like Mark Richt, kind of a big name that came in, there's a lot of buzz. It helps sell tickets. But it also helps recruiting because you get a buzz and you get the perception, hey, Miami's on the way back. We're going to be a big-time program again. We got a really well-named coach. And you've seen it in recruiting. They had a pretty good class last year, doing really well this year in recruiting, but that's all based kind of a house of cards a little bit, that perception that we're back, we're finally going to beat FSU. If they do beat FSU, it gives Mark Richt exactly what he needs, legitimacy. And he says, not only have we got the buzz, now we got something to back it up. We've turned the table. We beat Miami. Every recruit they're going to talk to, now we've passed Florida State. You can say maybe they haven't talent-wise, but I guarantee they're going to tell every recruit that. And let me harken back a little bit to 2010. Remember the college football landscape in the state of Florida. Florida absolutely owned things. What happened? Jimbo Fisher came in, got the buzz, got some big-name recruits, and what did he do in 2010? He beat Florida convincingly, beat Miami, and suddenly it's been a shift ever since. For the last 7 years, FSU has owned the state. You kind of get the feeling if Miami goes out and wins this game with all the momentum Mark Richt, you can kind of see a changing of the tide here. So I really do think this is a huge game. On the other hand, FSU loses, then that stack of cards kind of falls down for Mark Richt, and then it's going to be, look, it's just the same old Miami. They beat a bunch of bad teams. They had hype that wasn't substantiated, and here we are again.
Yeah, in some ways, a lot of the pressure has shifted now to the University of Miami to win this game, given the way they've looked and the way that Florida State's looked up until this point. And one of the reasons Miami has looked so good is their running game, and Mark Walton is a special, special talent. You look at this Miami team, they come in with a junior quarterback in Rozier. You know, Braxton Berrios is a wide receiver that, sadly, I have visions of running wild on Saturday afternoon, and he has been a very successful and player that has been at Miami for seemingly 25 years. But again, a lot of talent, a lot of returning talent. But it all starts with Mark Walton, the importance of stopping him, Ira.
Yeah, you know, look, I don't think they're going to stop Mark Walton, you wouldn't think, but they have to do a good job of controlling him. And if you think about the FSU's dominance in this rivalry, think about when they had Duke Johnson and they've had different backs. If FSU handles that running game early, that sets the tone. And especially with a young quarterback like Rozier, I just think Florida State really has to do a good job defensively. And I think for the most part this year, this is the kind of offense I think they'll be well suited to stop. It's not all the misdirection of NC State. It's not all the up-tempo stuff of Wake Forest. This is a little bit more of a traditional offense, kind of like Michigan last year in the bowl game. And I think that suits FSU's linebackers well. It suits their defensive front well. So I think they have a chance to do a good job of slowing Walton down. And I do think that's really the key to the whole game.
And in any game, you always also look at the quarterback, Malik Rozier, for them. Will he have success throwing the football against Florida State's secondary?
Well, he's put a pretty good number so far, but again, you have to look at that schedule. You don't know. They really haven't played anybody. He had a nice outing against Duke, threw for 270 yards, a couple touchdowns there, but let's face it, there's nobody in Duke's secondary is probably playing in the league. Florida State's got two guys who are probably going to be first-round locks, a couple of the guys that could play in the league. So talent-wise, there's a big difference. I think, as Ira pointed out, too, Florida State always matches up better with a pro-style system. Mark Richt's going to run that system that matches up well to what Florida State likes to do defensively. So from that perspective, I don't know. And they've struggled a little bit against the run. You can look at their numbers right now, not doing that great against the run, surprisingly. So, I don't know. I think this is a game where you got to be balanced, really, more than anything.
It'll be interesting to watch what Miami's offense does, obviously, against Florida State's defense, but also Miami's defense. You see, this is a team that returned a lot on that front seven. Everybody knows Quarterman. He's a great player. Obviously, you look at a guy like McIntosh, Jackson, a lot of talent there for Miami. I wonder if you look at this, Miami's front seven, how would you compare them to other great front sevens Florida State's already faced? You've seen it with NC State, and you saw it with Alabama. It seems like it's murderer's row every week.
It really has been. These four opponents in a row. I mean, Wake Forest doesn't have the talent of NC State, Alabama, or Miami, but they have the experience, and they play really well as well. I think this is kind of a combination of all of them. I think that they've got some experience, but it's not like it's all seniors. NC State was all veterans up front. Alabama was kind of new, but they were highly recruited guys. So some of those guys didn't have a ton of experience, but they were big 4 or 5 star recruits coming out of high school. This is a group that's kind of a mixture. These sophomores, the strength of this Miami team, again, talking back to the earlier point about the shift in the state, the possible shift in the state, Miami's got some great sophomores. Quarterman and some of these other guys. You see SO on the roster or the depth chart, you think, well, it's only a sophomore. Those guys all played last year at a really high level. They're really good players.
McLeod, they got a lot of good players, young players.
It's a good mix. So I think this is as good. I don't know if it's quite as good as NC State in terms of experience, but, man, this is a really good defensive front.
It's hard to imagine that you would say the idea is to throw the ball here, given that Florida State had 7 yards passing at halftime against Wake Forest. But I don't imagine Florida State's going to line up and run the ball, although we think that's probably what they have to do, right?
Yeah, it's weird. Again, you look at the level of competition. So with Miami, Duke ran for 183 yards against them. This isn't a team that usually runs the ball very well. And you go, how did they do that against that front seven? A little surprising, but they've also had Toledo threw for 344 yards and had 3 touchdown passes against them too. So it looks like maybe you can run, maybe you can pass. But again, this goes back to Jimbo Fisher. What he needs to do to be best, it is obviously be balanced. But I do think you need to be able to run the football. And I do think they can have some success running the football against Miami. And they need to if they're going to protect that young quarterback.
Who's been the MVP so far for Florida State through 3 games? We'll take a look at that. We'll also get to our picks when we come back on the Warchant.com report. Welcome back to the Warchant.com report. Obviously, for details of the game, we encourage you to go to Warchant.com's game day page for a complete list of game-watching locations throughout the country. There will be plenty of those. MVPs through the first 3 games. I'll start with you.
I'll go with the obvious. I think Auden Tate, for what he did, not only has been the leading receiver, for him to be playing hurt in that last game and come up with that game-winning catch, gutting that out, that's impressive what that guy's done so far. Really like him. Defensively, I'm just going Matthew Thomas. He's been so consistent. He leads them in tackles, but he missed almost the whole NC State game. Really impressively. That guy is now, it's amazing. We were thinking he might not be on the team a few weeks ago, so he gets qualified. He's on the team. Now this kid's going to make some money in the league because he's playing well if he keeps this up. And on special teams, it's got to be our boy Ricky right now. He's hit 8 in a row. He kept FSU in that last game and put him in a position where they could win it. And really, he had a block. So really, he's 8 out of 9 this season. Considering what we saw last season, that's pretty darn good for Ricky.
He did miss the 30-yarder.
Yeah, so I'd say he's 8 of 9.
You don't
the block. I don't put that on him.
Okay, that's fair. He's done a great job, and since I ragged him, I got to say bravo, Ricky.
That's probably why.
It's a good job. Yeah. Well, I'm here to motivate. And he stole my guy. It's Auden Tate all day long.
Yeah.
He's the lone receiver that shows a level of consistency and, dare I say, professionalism, and he's trustworthy, unlike some of the guys on this team.
Yeah, it's unanimous on offense and special teams. On defense, I might give a co-MVP to Derek Nottie. I think he's played really well as well. Been very consistent on a group that has not been consistent for the most part across the board.
Keys to the game for Florida State's defense in stopping Miami and winning this game, or just for victory in general, I'll start with defensively, just stopping Mark Walton. You got to stop the run, make Rozier beat you with the pass. I think Florida State could win the game that way.
Yeah, I agree with you there. But, I think I've said this every week, don't fall behind. I'm gonna run you some stats here for you. FSU's trailed 3 straight games at halftime. We all are aware of that. Miami in the first half has led 24-6, 14-0, and 17-3. They love to jump out in front of teams. So that's kind of a bad combination. I don't think this is a game. We've said it before. You don't want to fall down. Your favorite number, 17-3?
17-7, 17-3.
You don't want it to be that going into halftime. I think that's bad for Florida State when you got a rookie quarterback. So I would say if there's ever a game you're going to get in a fast start offensively and defensively, this is a game you got to do. And then real quick, I think on the other side of the ball, establish run. You got to have some running again. You can't rely completely on your rookie quarterback. And for the last 2 weeks, Florida State's won special teams. And it won them the game last week. It almost won them the game against NC State if they could have done anything offensively when they blocked that kick. And it won last year's game, the block at the Rock. If you win special teams, I think that's going to give you a huge chance to win this game.
Also, I think you got to block people.
Did you read my notes? Did you read my notes?
I had a sneaky suspicion.
I let that one go because that was so obvious.
Somebody had to block somebody.
You have to block somebody.
Somebody.
Not saying everybody.
Just somebody.
You just got to block
Can't
somebody.
Block nobody.
There's 11
block
guys.
Somebody.
You just block somebody. I also stopping Mark Walton, I think, is a huge key. And then I'm not as optimistic as Gene. I'm not saying you have to get off to a fast start. I'm saying the key is weather the storm.
Just be within 3 points.
Just weather the storm. Just don't fall apart in the first half.
Don't get down 16 to nothing. Get down.
Not asking for anything.
There's no Dalvin walking through that door to save you this time around, or Jameis when it happens that way.
Weather the storm and let some pressure build on Miami if the game's close in the second half.
It's time for our weekly picks, so let's get to them now. Louisville -4 at NC State. That's the Thursday night game, Gene.
Well, we know about Raleigh on Thursday nights,
right?
So
buddy. Yeah, good
we
times.
do. I'm not really. I think it's a one-man band at Louisville. I think they're weak everywhere else. Obviously, it's a great player in Lamar Jackson, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. This is a pretty good front seven at NC State. They're at home. They're going to be fired up there in what we call the Wiz Palace. I like NC State in this one.
The Wiz Palace, indeed. I like NC State as well. Getting forward.
I'm taking it's a snake pit over there.
Oh, buddy. Wake Forest is at Clemson, and as game as Wake Forest was, Clemson is the best team in the country right now. I'll take Clemson.
Better than Alabama, huh? You're saying that. So. Did you not see Alabama's last 2 games? They won by like a combined 200-0.
Against a terrible SEC,
well,
Vanderbilt and Ole Miss. And Ole Miss, of course, lost to Cal. And now, listen, I'll tell you this. Alabama was very impressive, obviously, and they beat us. But Clemson right now has won on the road 2 of the 3 times they've played a ranked opponent, a top 15 team. It's Clemson.
I hate the hook on the end of this one. I hate that. But you think Wake Forest is going to probably have? They put all their effort into this game. They thought they had the game. There's going to be a letdown. They're on the road to a tough place. I don't know. I wouldn't pick this one if I was gambling on it, but I'll go ahead. I would take Clemson just because they're
exactly the same thing I said when I was looking at this. I was never actually.
I'm not actually betting it either. We have to pick these games. I love the caveat. He's like, now listen, I may get this wrong, but I would never really touch it.
I'm just telling people at home, don't listen to me.
I would. This is one of those contests where you get to pick the 5 games you want to bet. I'm going to take Wake Forest plus the points. I just think 21.5 is a huge number, and I agree that I saw some quotes from Wake Forest players saying they were crushed after that loss. I think they were. But getting to play Clemson, defending national champion, I think that gets them back.
Could be
on
a
track
sleepy
pretty
nooner.
quickly.
They're coming off their big win at Virginia Tech.
That's true. That's true. But I think Clemson's going to roll by 28 or more, so I'll take the Tigers. Michigan's going to beat Michigan State. Will they do so by 13.5?
Yeah, I think I'll take the Wolverines in this one. I like the reverse hook on that. I think they're just a heck of a lot better team than Michigan State right now.
Yeah, what's going on? Michigan State has not been.
They used to be pretty good.
Yeah,
They beat Iowa over the weekend. That was a big win for them, right?
yeah, but there's a couple times earlier this year. Was it Notre Dame?
Well, yeah. Well, and last year they weren't any good at all. Washington State's at Oregon. Oregon's giving 2. What a big win for Washington State over the weekend against, or actually, was that a Friday night game that they beat Southern Cal? Yeah, and I had predicted that. I feel good about it. Oregon's giving 2. I wouldn't bet this one in real life either, but I'll take Oregon and give the 2.
Pac-12, I'm always wrong, so it doesn't seem to matter. But yeah, I'll go ahead and go with Washington State, although they could have a letdown after the big win.
Oh, you're going with Washington State?
I'm going with Oregon.
I'm going with Washington State.
Okay, he's got it.
I'm taking Oregon.
All right, well, it's hard to bet LSU after losing at home to Troy, and they are coached by Ed Orgeron, which we knew at the time was a tragic hire. But Florida's garbage, but they're garbage that keeps winning.
They don't usually cover. They did on it late. They almost didn't cover.
I am wrestling. This is another game none of us would actually wager in real life. Give me Florida -4.
I'm with you, reluctantly.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, Florida's bad, but you're right. They just seem to luck into figuring out a way to win every week, and LSU's they're horrific, though. So
they're having meetings to decide whether or not the team is giving up on Orgeron.
Can you fire a first-year coach mid-season? Is that possible?
It's ugly.
Alabama, the weekly cover, that is Alabama, given 26.5 against Texas A&M. I don't know. They can't keep scoring 60 points a game, can they?
They don't need to score 60. They're not going. A&M ain't going to score much on them.
I'll take Alabama, I guess. Garbage A&M team.
This is one of those where I'm late to the party. I know I'm late to the party, but I'm still going to lay the points.
Yeah, 26.5.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's going to stop.
Yeah, Alabama's on a roll right now. No pun intended.
Nicely done. The Canes are giving 3. Is that right? The Canes are giving 3 in this game? That's what Vegas thinks of Florida State currently?
Yep.
Woo! The times are tough in Tallahassee. Do the Noles rise up, get a win? And last week I told you 51-7. Little off on the score, but I had to win. So
we all have the win.
Yeah. So what do you got?
I got to make my pick in this one. I don't even. I hate
to tell I caught him off guard. We're picking that game?
The streak ends. I'm saying the streak is over. 24-17 Miami.
All right, I'm going to go Miami 51, Noles nothing.
Come on, Jeff.
What? Go ahead, pick.
I don't go against streaks, so I'm going to go with Florida State in a game that will feature 10 field goals. 18-12, Florida State beats Miami.
So that red zone defense is going to win it for them.
Okay, in truth, I'm going to take Florida State 23-21 in a thriller. It's Ricky Aguayo. His time expires.
A game winner. From behind.
Down 21-20. We're all forlorn, crestfallen, walking off the field thinking it's all over. And then, boom, Ricky Aguayo from 46 wins it for the Noles.
How about there's a pass to Auden Tate as the time's expiring on the sideline to set it up. They
race out there.
They realize, no, there is 1 second left.
There is 1 second left. So, Ricky comes in there, cool, calm as a cucumber. Boom.
Does he pull a Dustin Hopkins and go running out of the stadium after he does that?
Well, then we should plant the flag at our own stadium, just right there in front of the Canes bench.
So you might just break out the
Bohica?
The Bohica.
Apply to Bohica if we win only 8 in a row? Man. This would be a tough loss, Miami. Don't come in here and lose this time. All the pressure's on you guys. We're terrible. You got to beat us, right? All right, for Gene Williams and Ira Schoffel, Ryan Kelly, I'm Jeff Cameron. Thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you next time.